Be with you shortly. Properties. Okay, so that's working. And that's working. Start streaming. And just bear with me. Speakers. Noise suppression. Okay. Right. I think I should be live on everything. Good morning, Europe. I hope you're well. It is Tuesday, the 10th of June, and the markets will open in, in approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds. I've downloaded the most recent version of TFC, so I got the 1.4.9. Okay. The FTSE is opening well above the overnight range, it would seem, although that does look a bit wrong. So let me just change that to like this. There we go. That is a bit better. That's the overnight range. And I've just taken a long position right at the double top. And the DAX is opening inside the overnight range. We seem to gravitate around this area. Yesterday around 175. I know that because I had some positions myself at 180, and I'm thinking, is it gonna get above it or is it not? So here we go. We're just about to open. Just want to check something. Doesn't seem to be up and running yet, developer. Unless I'm doing something wrong. Okay. Don't know if you noticed this, but I sure did. Did you see these strange spikes that we had? Like last night. I imagine that was replicated in the Dow. I had a pretty rough day. Wow. That is I didn't know that had happened. And no pre-market data for this yet. Okay, so you see here how the DAX is coming down to this area here, and I would expect that there would be support down here around 24,138. So I'd like to be, I think I'm a bit late here. I actually had an opportunity to buy at 18. No, I didn't, because that would be inhuman. But to be a buyer, to see how quickly it almost feels as if, I don't want to use the word manipulation, but I certainly want to use the word of intentionally driving the market down to where there's liquidity. And I'm not sounding like a, shit, I got a frog in my throat. Excuse me. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen. That was a bit weird. I wouldn't subscribe to conspiracy theories, but a friend of mine, he showed me a job advert for a market maker job going in, I think it was Frankfurt, wherever it was. But the responsibility, amongst others, for the market maker is to generate liquidity, and so you have to at least be marginally aware of the notion that the human mind, when it places its orders or its positions, almost inevitably wants to do it above the current range or place stop losses below the current range. And God, this was, I first heard David Paul talk about this in 2006, I think it was. He says the market will go where the liquidity is, or where the orders is, because that optimizes the amount of transactions. And of course, the stock exchanges themselves, they make their money from the amount of transactions that are executed. And it was in one of those seminars that a gentleman, he raised his hand and said, well, I quite like to place my orders where the masses place their stop loss. And David Paul, he adopted that phrase. It wasn't actually David that came up with that. It was in an event that he and I did together, where someone raised, and I can so see that man. I think he was from Southampton. I can see it right now. And David commented in the break to me, now there was a lateral thinker. It was quite a pivotal moment, I think, for David, when he was sort of confronted with someone who had given trading such deep thought. Yeah, it's a beautiful moment, really, a really beautiful moment. So anyway, it would suggest that 1 on the 30-minute is a retest of the lows, and one has to think we are headed back up to 24,250 and higher, basis on this pattern here. Obviously, that requires that 24.30 is a solid low. Over in the FTSE, my long position is going very well, as you can see. I actually, truth be told, I had a much bigger position. Even on this account, I was long 425 pounds a point. I had absolutely maxed out my margin, and I had done it on my other account as well. And so yesterday, I'm sitting trading on my phone, and the market comes down here, and at one point it's at 12, and my own stop losses, they were down here around, I think, 10 and 5 and 6. I'm thinking, come on, please hold, because it was such a big position. And then it finally pushed away. I was like, oh, thank God. And truth be told, I bottled out on some of the positions when it came above my break-even area, but I still left some because I had this idea that we were gonna push higher. But I'm glad I didn't see this move during the night session. I think that would have freaked me out. DAX is testing the lows again. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of school run we have today. Yesterday's school run, I don't know if you saw this, but there was an absolute diabolical mind blow. I don't know if you have considered this, but if the third bar, bar 3, is an inside bar, sort of thinking out loud whether one should be using that as the trigger rather than anything else. I have so many of my own positions, I don't even remember where we entered the FTSE, but I think it was about 36 or 38 thereabouts. So was this a retest? Was 3 a retest of 1 and 2 lows? Yeah, it looks like 3 is acting as a retest. I was listening to Al Brooks' team. I wish I was that good. I wish I was as good as they were when they talk about price action. They're so good at explaining it. I just don't have that ability. So here we go on the FTSE. You know, we have an all-time high at 8909. I'll show you on a weekly chart what it looks like. The week before we had a high of 8839, so we're really pushing. What's interesting is that the first bar negative yesterday, sorry, first bar positive. See that? It was actually the first time that it had worked in a while, although I think it's fair to say that this was one strange price action that we witnessed in the FTSE yesterday. Blimey. You ever see such tightly woven overlap bars, huh? I've already decided I'm going to be patient in the DAX today. I'm a little annoyed with myself that I didn't stick my tongue out and bought below 29 and 28. That could turn out to be the low of the day because it's a rather classical pattern. But we'll see. We're running out of steam in the FTSE now. both the FTSE and the DAX are sat near their respective all-time highs. I'm unsure what it will take to get the DAX to push higher. It's a monthly chart of the DAX. So we made an all-time high last week on Thursday. Relatively good Friday. Monday, unfortunately, I don't know if you can see this, but it is, or it could become significant. But there is such a thing as a... One thing I would like to do is I'd like to show you this on a paint, because you know I'm old school. So you have a high over here. Now it's in green. And we know from the behavior of the past that now in this area up here, orders will build up. Orders to take profit on long positions, orders to stop yourself out of short positions, orders to go short, and orders to go long. That's what building up. And the market then retraces. Fairly big retracement. And we're now coming back up again. Now, here comes the nitty-gritty theory. This bar here, this is the highest bar that we can observe. This bar here is the bar that makes a new all-time high. There was an analyst or trader called W.D. Gann. You will have people all over the world who are big fans of W.D. Gann and his square of 12, square of 9, square of 144, and moonlight triangles and whatnot. I'm not a proponent of it by any stretch. I think that it was a con. I think that in a God-fearing America in the 1930s, if you claimed that you had read the Bible cover to cover a handful of times and you had found a secret code, and that code was revealed to you by God to trade the financial markets, I think you were inevitably going to sell a lot of courses. And that's what W.D. Gann did. But he did trade, and David Paul researched his trades because those trades were published. And he concluded, David, was that what W.D. Gann was essentially doing was selling what we call lost momentum. Lost momentum is when you go above an old high and then you fade back into the range. I developed my own entry approach to that by saying that, let's get a different color, that if the low of the highest bar is closed below, as you see here, then the market has accomplished what it needed to, which was to take out the orders above the old high. They accomplished that there. And now we're headed back down to where we came from, which is there. this is a daily chart, and so this may take a little longer. But so WGD Gann did say something that I thought was of value. He said, the low of the highest bar is the important point. And the flip side, of course, is true. The high, say this was the lowest bar, the high of the lowest bar is of importance. And that has been a trusted colleague of mine now for the last 15 years as I built my wealth in trading. Then this approach is something that I use on many time frames. I never really talk about it during my live streams. And there's no secret. Although I think at a time when I did courses in 2012 to 2015-16, I would be talking about this in my course material. But since then I've sort of just opened up about it, because the whole ethos of this is just to help people. I think trading is hard enough, even if you know the best kept secrets. I still think that trading is hard enough as it is. So, giving that we are closing below the lowest point on the highest bar, as we did yesterday in the DAX, that is or should be a concern to the bulls. Of course, as a day trader, I can navigate around that to my heart's content. I can just say, okay, well, that's good to know, but I'm trading the school run signal, which is I'm waiting for the next bar. The aggressive school run has already triggered a long signal. I have been more conservative of recent, and I'm trading the school run. So another 3 or so minutes. Get a sense that it's going to be a somewhat tricky decision. On school run today, because we've tested the lows of the overnight range, but it's not exactly Not moving away with gusto, are we? And if the low point 1 triggers, we're going to have to be short. In fact, one could argue that because we are inside the overnight range, we should probably look to be sellers above 1 high. I'm really undecided because anti-theory says that we should trade this. You know, the theory says that we should trade school runs inside the overnight range as antis. Anti means that we do the opposite of a breakout. So if the market goes above 179, instead of being breakout buyer, we will be fading it or going the opposite direction. But one low takes place below the overnight range. I'm sort of just trying to square up the idea of how does the FTSE going to react with the DAX breaking lower. As you can see, I'm trying to get information from other sources, correlated markets. Well, there we go. I think we got a sell signal here. I'm glad that it hasn't triggered yet. I don't actually know how to play this. See, bar 2 takes place inside the range. So do I sell? I think a break of 29 would lead to a retest of 17. But on the other hand, if the 3 manages to get above 2, I think that's a sign of strength, and I wouldn't necessarily want to be a short of that. I think I will sell 26. I'm going to input it as an order. Should be in there now. Okay, maybe that's a little ambitious to have 2 orders. I could have done that from over here, couldn't I? Silly sausage. So much easier to navigate the orders from this window here. So I'll show you. There we go. So there's school run long line, and there's school run short line. And one is in as an order. over in the FTSE. I've spent a considerable amount of time developing FTSE techniques, but the FTSE is one of those indices that at times does this. And I don't know how you feel about that, but that to me is just, that would be my idea of a nightmare. As a trader. But then again, I thought about it yesterday. I'm thinking, well, what if I just sold, bought, sold, bought? Oh, okay, maybe I just maybe stopped out, and then new range, sold, bought, sold, bought, sold, bought. Problem is, of course, that the range is so tight that with the spread, this is a 5-point range. Anyway, been filled on the DAX, so this is it. So far, what is evident is that the buyers are stepping in below 2. Still have to prove themselves though, but I'm a little bit underwater in the DAX. But I showed you the daily chart, so it gives you an idea of the forces at play. But the bulls are clearly seeing this as a retest of 1 and buying below prior bar low. Well, it's not like we haven't done this ourselves in our time. And so I think it was a relatively tough decision today to be short below 2 or wait for a break above 2 or even being a buyer below 2. I could certainly argue both, although it's really quite marginal. What is? I mean, we have 2 negative bars, 1 and 2. 2 closes at its lows with barely any wick, so it would be reasonable to expect that a retest of 1 low would be coming. I suppose what we could do is we could be mindful of the precarity of the situation, and we can have a stop loss perhaps up here at 162. Right now I have a stop loss above the 15-minute bar. The 15-minute bar high, bar number 2, which is the school run bar, has a high at 172, and I have placed my stop loss at 185, so about 10 or so points above. I think much of it will depend on where, I like to follow the 10-minute chart, where it closes. Ideally, we'll see the 10 close, the bar number 4 close the lower bar number 3. But if that fails, then I would like to move my stop loss a little closer, because then that does increase the odds of, when you see a 10-minute close, a completed bars, high being taken out, there are traders that move their stop losses down accordingly. So from here, down to here, down to here, down to here. So 4 closed below 3, I think that it's reasonable to move stop loss to 62. It's just because normally I wouldn't fuss so much over a stop loss, but this is just such a precarious trade to be in, because you are betting on major support breaking. Now with good reason, but you are nevertheless. And as you can see, there's a fight going on. This is by no means over. What's supporting our stance is the price action of the Dow, although you can argue that the Dow is just following what Europe is doing. So if Europe began to rally, the Dow would rally as well. What's talking against my position, I think, is the FTSE. So I'm going to move my stop loss down to 63. I'm a little bit on a profit. It's marginal, but I am. Okay, so we are seeing a break of 1. I had hoped that would happen. Now it's just a question of how severe is that break going to be? Is it just going to be a wash and rinse, or are we actually going to get a meaningful clear out? If I remove all the lines, I want to make sure that I haven't got any rogue orders in there. So here's the hourly chart. So yesterday's low was at 24,096, and you also have a high over here. I would just love to be able to move my stop loss down to break even. I just don't think I can do that with a a 10-point profit. So here's the hourly chart. So it's looking better now. Are we taking out yesterday's low? So this is what it looks like on the daily chart. We're coming down to 96. We traded as low as 105 on this move here on bar number 9, gone 905. I would be surprised if there we go. So now we are moving. Now they're beginning clearing out stops below yesterday's low at 96. So I'm moving my stop loss to break even. So this is the daily chart. Obviously it would be a miracle to be in this position all day. The irony is that what I am making in the DAX, I am certainly losing in open profit in the FTSE. It can be difficult to navigate a situation where you are long one index that is at least geographically related to an index that you are short in. In this case, short the DAX, long the FTSE. Of course, it's entirely possible that they will continue in opposite direction, but generally not likely. So we cleared out the stops below. Now it becomes a, well, should I have taken profit? I'm in from 26, it went as low as 84. So that's a profit of approximately 42 points. Look, I'm content saying, look, if I get stopped out for nothing, so let that be it. I think I've done everything I should as a trader. I manage my position. Of course, it was a lot more fun when I had a bigger profit. 40 points profit times 6 is 240 pounds. That would have been a good profit to secure. I could have taken half profit, but you saw the daily chart and the evidence was there, especially on the hourly chart. I think you have an old low from yesterday that is being retested, and that coincides with a swing high here and a swing low here. Do you see how they're all sort of in the same region? So you can sort of say this is a halfway house. But the irony is that if the DAX does bounce from here, it'll probably do my FTSE position the world of good. So from a strategic point of view, maybe this wasn't the worst idea in the world, especially now that I can move the stop loss to break even and have. So this is the life of a trader. That's what we do. So while I have you here, I do apologize for my absence during the US session yesterday. I think I was looking at it and I was thinking, would I have made money? I most certainly would have made money in the Nasdaq. I categorically can tell you that. Because you had a, I think you need to see it on a 5-minute chart. Anyway, maybe it's just my eyes that are suggesting that I would. Now that I'm looking at it after the fact, maybe it's not so obvious. Go figure. I take my words back. Maybe I would have lost you yesterday. No, there it is. I did think I saw the school run trigger along above. At 793. I didn't trade it myself. I was stuck in traffic. FTSE making new highs on the day. And DAX is testing the low end of the range of the day. I'm going to take my profit in the DAX down here, closing the DAX. Okay. I am going to pause the stream now. I've taken profit in the DAX at 98, so 28 points in profit. And the FTSE position is doing very well. So I'm going to spare myself. I was prodded and poked in ways that you can't imagine yesterday. And, you know, for the men, not in a good way, if you know what I mean. So I went to bed last night and you know what? I actually slept for 11 hours. Such was the extent of the testing and yesterday. So it was quite the morning for me. Anyway, enough of my personal issues. It was lovely to guide you this morning. I hope that you are. Hope that you find value in these sessions. I will be back for the US session, and I will see you then. All the very best. Bye-bye.